Howdy, I'm Bob Terry. Welcome to Western Trails. The Old West. Those few words can bring to mind many different images of people and places. Towns like Tombstone, Deadwood, El Paso. And thoughts of gunslingers, both lawmen and outlaws. Legendary figures like Jesse James and Wyatt Earp. But none of these are more notable than a young man who has had countless stories and films about him, and whose legendary exploits were all done by the time he was 21 years old.
I'll sing you a true song of Billy the Kid. I'll sing of some desperate deeds that he did way out in New Mexico long, long ago, when a man's only chance was his own 44.
Bob,
Daniel, thank you for joining us today.
thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate you being here. What do you think of the first annual Billy the Kid Western Film Festival here in Hico, Texas?
I think it's absolutely amazing. A lot of great movie stars, good support from the community. It's super exciting to be here.
Daniel is the author of Billy the Kid, an autobiography. The Kid's Identity Revealed, Daniel A. Edwards. Why autobiography?
The story is really the story of Brushy Bill Roberts, who's from here in Hico. And he actually wrote his story. He shared it with William V. Morrison, who was a lawyer that discovered him, because he didn't come out and say he was Billy the Kid. A friend of Billy the Kid, who was thought murdered in 1882 or disappeared. Nobody knew what happened to him. He reemerged after 70 years. He had been living in Florida under an alias because his brother died and he wanted to inherit the property. So he proved to a court of law he was Jesse Evans, a notorious outlaw from New Mexico, childhood friend of Billy the Kid. And when the lawyer made an offhand comment that he was related to the guy that owned the house where Billy was killed, Jesse Evans said Billy was not killed by Pat Garrett. He lived to be an old man. Matter of fact, he's still living and he's in Texas. So that's what happened. And then the lawyer met with this guy. He denied it, said, "I'm not Billy the Kid," because he didn't want his wife to know that he was Billy the Kid. But he whispered to him and said, "I need you to come back tomorrow. I can tell you some stuff." The next day he had sent his wife away on an errand. And he said, "You got your man. I'm Billy the Kid, and I'm 90 years old. I want to die a free man." So he had two goals. One, he wanted to straighten out all the lies that were told about him, and two, he wanted to die a free man. He wanted to get a pardon from the governor. So the lawyer prepared his case, took it to the governor. The governor made kind of a media circus out of it instead of treating it like a serious legal matter. And Brushy, unfortunately, had a stroke on the spot at the governor's mansion.
Oh, wow.
He died 3 days later, right around the corner here in Hico, but not before he told his story. So he told his story to William Morrison, who published it in the original book, alias Billy the Kid, in 1955. And so he did get a chance to write his autobiography. So.
Oh. Well, I've been hearing this for years.
Yes.
About Brushy Bill.
Yes.
And then we've actually been here to Hico before and gone through the museum. And of course the movie Young Guns.
That's what got me on it.
That's they start out that way. Emilio Estevez, he looks about 190.
Right.
So why? What? I mean, there's so many different subjects that you can write on. And when you decide to write a book, I mean, it's a very time-consuming thing.
Yes.
It's a very life-consuming thing.
Yes.
So what made you decide on this?
I didn't think he was treated fairly. His story is really a story about Texas, which is interesting. He said he was called the Kid originally, and then the Texas Kid because he's from Texas, and then later because his name was Billy, they called him Billy the Kid. But it's really a story about Texas, and the poor guy really. Number one, they told a lot of lies about him, even when he was alive. So really, he was a guy that was up against a corrupt system, and they did everything they could to make him a criminal. They did everything they could to make him an outlaw. And he says in here, I never robbed a stagecoach. I wasn't an outlaw. And so I kind of bonded with him in a way, and I felt like we should set the record straight about what really happened. One of the things I say in the book is, despite the best efforts of all the corrupt judges, corrupt district attorney, corrupt everything, and this is all in the book, he died a free man. They tried to kill him, they tried to hang him, they tried to do anything they could, but he died a free man. But what really happened is, I bought the original book from 1955, which was out of print. Couldn't get it. It was about $150 to find a rare copy. But I bought one just because I really wanted to know the story. And this was many years ago. And so I read it and I said, oh, that's interesting. But to your point, I started looking at other things, other conspiracies, whatever. And then many years later, last year actually, I just got in. I saw Young Guns again. That's what happened.
Okay.
It was on TV, and so I said, whatever happened to that guy? By now, they should have proven whether or not he was a fraud or whether or not he was Billy the Kid. By now, somebody should have proven it, right?
Uh-huh.
The other interesting thing that happened is I don't believe there's ever a high-resolution photo of the original tintype until a couple years ago when they sold it at auction.
Right.
So I think it sold for $2.3 million or something like this.
Yeah, something like that. It was a lot of money.
Right. So in the process, they made a high-resolution scan. So I said, wait a second. We have photos of Brushy. We have photos of Billy. Why can't we do an analysis? So when I did this analysis here, everybody looks at this and goes, oh, that's the famous tintype of Billy the Kid. And they're right, but the left-hand side is actually Brushy Bill Roberts.
Really?
So that is, you can see the two sides of the face blend into the perfect image of one face. And inside there's more photos of different comparisons, different angles. And you'll see that Billy the Kid had two different eyebrows. His right and his left eyebrow were two different. One's a curve, the other one's kind of a angle up and then another angle down. Brushy Bill had the exact same two eyebrows. So you'll see in the photos, and so that's what got me excited. And then I said, let's take the narrative that he wrote in Alias Billy the Kid, and let's look at the details and see if I can prove any of these things from the historical record. So most people say, for example, the shootout at Blazer's Mill, where Buckshot Roberts and the Regulators had this big gunfight. It's in Young Guns.
Yeah.
That's that big scene in Young Guns.
Yes.
So everybody talks about
Brian
that.
T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody looks at that and looks at Brushy's version and goes, oh, that's not how it happened, because history tells us it happened this way. So I said, okay, so I can't use that because the historical record is so confused. There's so many different portions of that. But let me find some things that are more mundane and see if Brushy's telling the truth. So he said he knew Jesse James. He says he had a house in San Patricio, New Mexico. He said he served with the Rough Riders. He said he knew Buffalo Bill Cody. He knew everybody. So it's kind of like a Forrest Gump of the Wild West, right? He's in every photo. He's
And
in
he knows everything.
Yeah. So this is why people go, this is ridiculous. There's no way he could have known these things. Well, I found record that he was a Rough Rider. I have a photo of him with the Rough Riders.
Oh, really?
Yes. I found his house in San Patricio, New Mexico, which was an all-Hispanic town.
There's actual film footage of the Rough Riders.
I did not know that.
There is. There's actually film footage of the Rough Riders. Now, film, it deteriorates.
Yes.
So, it's not in great shape, kind of like the tintype.
Yes.
But there is several different clips of the Rough Riders. And so I would be very curious to see, is your picture of Brushy Bill with the Rough Riders in here?
It is. Okay,
With that
great.
picture in here, I'm very curious to look at that and look at film footage and see if we can pick him out in there.
One thing you might be interested in, one of the things he talks about extensively is he was a bronco buster. He said from the time could walk, he was riding horses, and he learned how to ride from the Indians, everything. So again, as somebody who's trying to claim they were Billy the Kid that wasn't, you would think would talk more about being a gunfighter than they would about busting horses. But he claims repeatedly he was a bronc buster. Well, in the Rough Riders, he claimed that he was in charge of breaking all the horses because he was so good at it, even though he was just a private. Well, and it's a long story, I don't want to give it away, but basically there's a man who presented Roosevelt with the famous Bronc Buster statue that's in the Oval Office today. It's Frederick Remington's famous Bronco Buster bronze statue. Okay, if you look at the cowboy that is on that Bronc Buster, it looks just like Brushy Bill. Now I don't know if he was the the model, but I found a lot of evidence, and the great thing, Bob, is that all of the evidence matches together. So a lot of people had nicknames, Tex or Slim or Whitey or whatever, but whenever the context matches, whenever he was a former government scout, when he's affiliated with somebody from the Buffalo Bill show, whenever he's known as the Texas Kid, when it was in the exact month and year that Brushy Bill claimed it was, and there's an evidence of it in the New York Times. I think we found our smoking gun that Brushy Bill was Billy the Kid. Not to mention the photos.
That's all amazing. I mean, the extreme. You have me captivated. You have me very interested.
That had me captivated. That's why I did it.
The evidence has convinced you
Absolutely.
that Brushy Bill is William Bonney.
Yes, and he, again, the most important thing to me personally is he said to William Morrison, he said, they've been selling so many lies. Will you help me straighten this mess out? Will you help me straighten this mess out? And so at the end of the book, I basically say thanks to Brushy. for straightening the mess out, because Brushy did it. He told his story. And the detail is amazing. I mean, what happened at the shootout at Pete Maxwell's house where Billy the Kid was supposedly killed. Now he claims that they killed his half Mexican partner named Billy Barlow. Okay, well, I found an article that is ignored by history from July 23rd, 1881. Okay, contemporary, real-time article from the Las Cruces Sun-Times.
You're talking about the beard, that he'd grown a beard and got really good and tanned to disguise himself?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I read that. So they buried him quick. They didn't put him on display, which was very uncommon back then.
Yes.
Somebody notorious, somebody that was as wanted and as known as William Bonney was, the Daltons, things like that, they'd have propped him up, and a lot of pictures would have been taken of him, but they buried him quick.
Yes, they did. And this was the third time, and no offense to Pat Garrett or anybody like that, but the fact of history is, and this is documented, that Pat Garrett killed 2 men from ambush without warning. One was Tom O'Folliard, and one was Charlie Beaudry. Both men were killed from ambush without warning, okay? And I believe that Billy Barlow was the 3rd man killed from ambush without warning, and I don't believe Garrett could have afforded to have a 3rd one on his, so he had to put him in the ground, he had to pass him off as Billy the Kid, and that's how history happened. So, the official history anyway, but I really do believe this is the true story.
Wow. Now, this book's available in how many different places? Available on Amazon, right?
It is available on Amazon. It's in broadline distribution through Ingram. They're the largest wholesaler in the world. So this is at Barnes & Noble, it's at Books A Million, it's in Amazon, you name it. And actually, it was it's gone up and down. It's been quite high, especially when Bill O'Reilly came out with his show. The ranking went way up, but as recently as I think yesterday, I was number 4 in Southwest on all of Amazon for Southwest.
Well, right now there's so many things on the internet about Billy the Kid.
Yes,
you've got the new picture. What do you think of the new photo?
I looked at it briefly, and what's interesting to me, I think it probably is him. Now, I didn't look at the face real close, but I think it probably is him.
It's hard to see in a lot of the photos that are online. It's hard to see him, but then they do have a blown-up photo online that really focuses in, and you can see him pretty clearly.
Yes.
So.
The thing that got me is his sweater, because if you look at the original tintype, his sweater is a very gregarious outfit. It's got a dragon, and it's very odd. Flamboyant, I should say.
Okay.
But Brushy was flamboyant. He has little horseshoes and little horses all over his shirts, and he's got a big red scarf. And so Billy the Kid was flamboyant. And so if you look at that sweater, there's little designs on the sweater, and the hat, it looks to be the same. So again, I'm no expert on that photo, but I did a lot of research for this book. But a brief glance, I think it's probably him. Charlie Beaudry's on the horse. And again, these are the things people don't focus on. They don't focus on Charlie. They don't focus on Tom O'Folliard or Severo Gallegos for these guys. And that's what I did. Is I said, I'm going to come at it with fresh eyes. I'm going to look at all these minor players and see if these things match.
Oh, you're talking about in the new photo,
Yes, they're in there. Yeah. Sally Chisholm is in there. Yeah.
Saying who else? Let's authenticate who else is in the picture.
That's what they did. Yeah, that's how I think they authenticated that one this time. Which is the same approach I took, in the book.
So you mentioned Bill O'Reilly.
Yes.
So Bill O'Reilly's seen your book.
I don't know if he did. I hope he did.
Okay.
But I published mine in October 2014. Not that 1 year ago, frankly. His came out in May 2015, and he said, the evidence far outweighs for Brushy Bill. The evidence for Brushy Bill far outweighs the evidence against Brushy Bill. Well, there's really been no other definitive book, from what I'm told, than mine since 1955.
Oh.
So Bill O'Reilly had roughly 60, 70 years to make up his mind, but he made up his mind, I guess, in May after I put my book out. So I don't know. I don't know if he's seen it or not. I hope he did. I'd love to give him a free copy. But
well, we hope your book does well.
Thank you very much.
Apparently, it's already doing well.
Yes.
And we thank you very much for writing it. And I look forward to reading my copy. This is my copy. I get to keep this one.
I'm happy to get the story out. But I really, honestly, it's, despite the best efforts of everyone, he died a free man. And he was from Texas. So I think that, it's an important story for Texas.
Thank you very much for being with us today.
Pleasure.
And I look forward to reading your book. And it's Billy the Kid, an autobiography. The Kid's Identity Revealed by Daniel A. Edwards.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. No matter what the official records state about Billy the Kid, there definitely seems to be a lot of questions that remain unanswered. And there is definitely a cloud of mystery around Billy and many of the events that he was involved in. Daniel's done a lot of research, and if you're interested in the Old West, we'd recommend you pick up his book. We'd like to thank Daniel Edwards for being a part of this episode, and we'd also like to thank him for his contributions in preserving the American West. My name's Bob Terry. Have a great day, and we hope you'll join us again next time here on Western Trails.